This is a Homeownership beat.
Cause I know there's like even on Instagram there's probably like just feeds or even I think there's a show on Netflix where like they show like these just remarkable houses that just look really really dope and it's like yo what's going on here, but people do that because they just want to have peace and comfort and so they make their house as nice as they want it to be because that's why I want to come home, that's why I spend the majority of my time outside of work, so they want it just to be as nice as they possibly can. But I say clearly everyone can't afford to live in such luxury houses, luxurious houses, but everyone wants a home in order to find comfort and peace. Life is generally tough and exhausting. Therefore, home is intended to be that one place where one can relax. I say people seek to fill their houses with things that bring them comfort. In addition to finding comfort, one seeks to find peace. No one wants to come home to chaos and dysfunction. Chaos and dysfunction should remain outside the home. Peace and tranquility should remain in it. And I wanted to make the clarification because many of us aren't fortunate enough to have houses. I'm a renter right now, and you know, when I say house, I'm not speaking exclusively to a house. I'm just speaking wherever you live that you want to have this comfort and peace. But there is something, especially here in America, where we have that desire to own a home, you know, and I have the opportunity to sit next to a homeowner because I was in the home buying process and it's not easy. No. It's not always easy, just financial hiccups and this, that, and the third, trying to find the right place to live. Yeah. And especially when you have kids, it's like I want to make sure I'm a good school district. So there's so much that goes into buying a house and this, that, and the third. But as someone who is a homeowner, what is your experience in buying that? Did you find because you have this certain what were your expectations when you went into it? Because like now that you have a home, it's like, was it all that you all that you envisioned it, or is it like, man, I didn't realize all this came with owning a home? So expectations, experience now that you are a homeowner.
I would say that it was a gradual process for me as we moved into the home. A lot of people tend to think like when you move into your new home, it's like peaches and rainbows, and you step into the house and everything's wonderful and beautiful. The hardest part of getting a new home and getting it for the first couple weeks is like you're gonna hear crazy things. You got to get adjusted to it. Like we had like a bug problem when we first moved in because the home had been sitting there for so long. And we don't have that problem anymore because I had to caulk, I had to do a bomb like in the house. Didn't rock with the bug spray company, didn't do anything. Not trying to mess with them, but it was cheaper for me to do it myself. But when we first moved in, it was difficult. But you expect for it to just jump in and be just this cool thing. So it took a long time, a gradual process to where like, oh, I'm comfortable. I was having buyer's remorse at first because I'm like, whoa, like, should we have jumped in? Should we have waited? I'm thinking all these crazy thoughts when we first did. But when we were shopping for a house, I did have like certain expectations. If I went into the house, it had a weird smell. It's a wrap for me. Yeah. We went into a house, my wife loved it, and I went in, and it just smelled like a dog to me. I love dogs, but the smell was just like I couldn't get over the smell. And like once I smelled it, nice home, it would have been nice, but it just smelled weird to me. So I could just see the different expectations that I have just reading your chapter and reading the concept. It made me really look at what are my thoughts about what's comfortable for me. Why do I seek this to make me comfortable? Because for me, I like to have TV. I grew up with TV. So if I don't have a TV, even if I might go like 4 or 5 days without watching it, but I want to have that ability to turn it on. I know what's coming on. Yeah. But some people don't care. They don't even need a TV in the house. They just read books. And it's just their level of comfort. Yeah. So yeah, I went through that process, man. And it's a good process. It's not for everybody. We've been fortunate and blessed enough that we haven't had to deal with some major occurrences financially, where we've had to like do something or fix something that was heavily damaged. Yeah. So by God's grace that He's keeping our home, and we're thankful for that. We know eventually we probably will have to, but just God's strength, we'll be able to be prepared for that and take care of that. If He helps us, as He helps us to steward our finances better. But I also know that you went through that process.
Yeah, man.
As
like,
well, man.
You just have this idea, like, and you just see growing up just the differences between, you know, you and your spouse, where she always lived in a house. So that was her paradigm or her view of home ownership, where it's just supposed to happen. My parents, we lived in New York. I say it all the time that the reason that we moved from New York to North Carolina was the quality of life. All I had known was apartments, because you can't unless you rolling in the dough, you can't really have no house in New York. And if you do have a house in New York, it's just buying for location. It's not like it's really nice. Like, you don't got that much space. You all up on top of people, but your money's stretched down south. And so parents moved from New York down south, and they built a house from scratch. My parents are the only people who ever lived in that house, and they've been living there ever since we moved to North Carolina. And so now that I have my family, it's like that's what I saw like as the ideal. You ultimately own a home, and it took my parents. They was, you know, later in life. I'm still in my 20s, and we was trying to own a house, and so that's where my Lena was coming from. And so even though I didn't come from the same paradigm, I still had that same idea of like, man, we get to have a house, you know, it's just gonna be a joy and excitement. And not that we didn't like living in an apartment, but you just have this idea of like, it's just the I don't want to say American dream, but it's just a milestone in your life to own something.
That's an interesting point, man. Cause I was reading the chapter, you're talking about what does a house provide. I was able to look back where at the shelters that I've had, I can count on my hands like the number of homes I lived in. Cause like growing up, when I was like, I know my younger sister, she's 4 years younger than me. All she knows is my parents' house, cause they built it as well. And all my life, like my parents lived in a little townhouse up until I was 3 or 4, and I don't even remember that because I was a toddler. And then from 4 to gone, they've had a home. So that's all I've ever known. I've never had the experience of things that you're gonna bring up, like homelessness and all these things. There are people out there that they had to move around so many times, or military families, or a lot of people, they've had to move around so many times that they can't even remember the last place like where they slept, where their head was laid, like 2 years ago. So it's just an interesting thing to look at the level of comfort you have when you have a home and a place to go, and not necessarily a home you own, but a place that's consistent for you.
And the whole point that I'm making is because I'll just speak for myself, just like looking at, you know, the actual physical place to bring you some sort of comfort and peace. Where it's like, for a lot of us, you may not be a homeowner. You may only be a renter, but that doesn't mean you can't find comfort and peace in where you are. Right there. And that was the point that I was making, because I say one may live in a very luxurious house and not be comfortable. One may not find comfort because one is at enmity with those who lives in the house with them. I say, however, one may live in like a shack or just not as luxurious of a house, and they find comfort and unity there, because the ones they live with, they have peace with them. And so I was just curious about how that dynamic, like, because again, we were talking about, hey, if you could have a patio, if I could have a gym, and we would think, oh, if I have those things, then I would have comfort and peace. But it's like, you see all the time, you got these billionaires who suffer with depression, and and this is where you live, and you got all these things, and it's like, we miss the disconnect where just having these things doesn't mean you have peace. And then I was talking to you earlier that I know people who aren't as what we would consider well off, but they've got peace and joy when the actual physical place where they live in, like someone who lives in the projects or somewhere who lives that's not as, you know, like I said, in comparison to just a very luxurious house. Because it's like, I don't want to compare it to like poverty or whatever the case is, but it's just not a nice place to live. But they have peace, they have comfort in a place where they may not have a TV. They may not have a bed. Like we come from a culture where we hear all these horror stories, but it's like, but they had peace and contentment within the place that they were living at. What are your thoughts on just that you know, I don't know what to call it, just that misunderstanding that we think, oh, if we have luxury, we automatically gonna have this peace and contentment. Because the thing that I'm making is like, but who's there with you? You know, that's the big point. That what if the people you living in this nice house with, y'all at odds with each other? You know?
Man, that makes me think about the show Blackish, man. Me and my wife watched that. I know you said that you watched a couple of the last few episodes.
Yeah.
And me and my wife caught up on the last couple of episodes. So I think his name's Dre and Bo.
Yeah.
They're like very well off.
Very well off.
Well off. After she's like a doctor, like big time money, and he's like a vice president of a marketing company. So like they're very well off, and they got a beautiful home.
Yeah.
Beautiful family, 5 children, and they have this beautiful looking life. And what I liked about it's an extremely well written show, man. Like a fabulous show with a lot of depth, and they showed this concept, this African American family that they had this 20-year marriage that was beautiful and strong, and they had this beautiful home. They had all these magnificent things like a big home, big backyard, kids going to private school, daughters like in college, sons going to college. They're able to pay for everything, like pretty much looking like it's cash. They forgot that they was gonna remodel their home and still had the bread to do it. So like these people had a beautiful looking life, home like was well, but they lacked communication in their marriage over time as they were able to add more and more children into their lives and had all these things that we really strive towards, which is nothing wrong with striving towards having a nice home, a lot of bread in your bank account. It's nothing wrong with striving towards it, but they lack some things within the marriage that could bring some essential comfort to the marriage, like that communication. So I think that was a really good picture that they depicted in that show, that you can have all these things, but if you lack something as simple as when I talk to you and we talk to each other, we're able to speak and have good communication. We're able to commune over the same concept. There's going to be discord in the home, and they matched it. They were nesting, and I just found out what that concept was. One person was living in a home, other person living in an apartment, and they were putting on this mask for the schools. They were putting on a mask for their kids, man. And their kids have became so sheltered, they didn't even notice that something was really wrong until they blew up in front of them. And it shows that as you keep covering these things up, it's going to blow up in your home if you don't have comfort and peace amongst the wife and the husband. If you don't fix it, you don't reconcile. Like if me and my wife, we're arguing, we're going back and forth. If we don't reconcile at some point, it's going to be awkwardness and tension as we keep going. So that's what it just put me in the mindset of, man. When you said that, I thought, like, man, it's weird that I'm seeing different shows and stuff, then we hit the podcast. And it's like, it goes with it. Like last few weeks ago, we talked about, I think, sin or something like that. Fire, and then Elder B hit the sermon. So it's really cool, man. Like, but seeing that show, it put me in the mindset of that show, man.
I think that's a great example because, like you said, you look at them as the model, especially from the black community. That's what I want. That's what I desire. They on the outside, you take the family portrait. Everything is looking good, but what's going on inside that house? There's discord. There's not peace. There's not comfort. Why? Because there's stuff that needs to be reconciled. And like you said, you kind of spoke on it already, where we're both married men, and it's like just because again, we have this idea: you get married, all your problems go away. You think all your problems go away. You're living in the house, you're living together. But it's like, if there's discord, no matter how luxurious your house is, no matter what amenities you got, if you got discord with your wife, with your kids, with your neighbors, whoever you got discord with, you're not going to achieve that peace and comfort that you desire. So that peace and comfort, the whole point that I'm trying to get y'all to understand is that the peace and comfort ain't found in the physical place.
Facts.
It ain't found in the physical place, because it's like, wherever you guys are, you guys have, like you said, have to have communication. There's got to be, people have to be on the same accord. Bo and Dre, they wasn't on the same accord. They butting heads. But y'all live in this nice house. Y'all got all this money. Y'all sending the kids. That don't equal comfort and peace. What equals comfort and peace is y'all two able to reconcile and be on the same page and the same